Good evening, YouTube. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. So, you know what today is? It's Friday night. Going over the weekend forecast. This weekend's going to be a little less eventful than some of the last ones. Sunday could be a little bit interesting as we have a marginal risk for severe weather. And there is some snow that could be sneaking its way into the Midwest around that time, especially towards the latter half of Sunday. But nothing super eventful at this time. So, we'll go ahead and get into the small details, and then we'll just go over what everybody can expect here. Start out with the severe threat, of course. It's a marginal risk that stretches from Charleston, South Carolina, all the way down towards just south of Jacksonville here. The Panhandle of Florida is in play here. Panama City, you're in that as well. Tallahassee, South Georgia, you're in there too. We got Gainesville, Florida, of course, too, and numerous other coastal cities. Main threat with this will be damaging winds and tornadoes. It'll be very isolated in nature. Maybe only a couple of discrete supercells and a handful of storms may end up populating this threat, so to speak. Still some question here. I don't think this will be upgraded too much further than a marginal risk. Not 100% ruling out a slight risk, but it's pretty unlikely to me at this time. But anyway, we will go ahead and now take a look at the temperatures. This is the most recent NAM 3 kilometer that's uploaded here. It's nice to have. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the country as a whole here. And it's going to be cooler than average for a lot of us. So when we'll look down the pipe into Saturday morning. Even areas in the eastern half of the country look like they're going to be cooler than average, especially for the mornings, or right at about average, I'd say, for some of you. A little further to the north seems to be the area that we could be seeing below average temperatures, especially towards the northern plains. And then as the day goes on, we kind of stay pretty chilly. We have those temps in the 50s for a lot of the southeast. Same can be said for the northern plains. It's a small little sector right here where it's into the 60s, but beyond that, relatively cool all across the board. And this is going to linger all the way through the weekend. And as time goes on, we go through Sunday. It's a similar deal. So there's this little warm sector that's going to be associated with the severe weather. But other than that, most of the warmth is not making it into the U.S. this weekend. As we go forward into Monday morning, it's a pretty similar deal. That cold air is actually starting to advance. So we'll have to keep an eye on which areas could see a little bit of frozen precipitation as the next storm system rolls in, but that'll be for another video. Wind gust on this weekend, a couple of spots where we could get some higher wind gusts. The southeast is one such area, since we have a storm system that'll be coming in from the Gulf, and then this next storm system will have a little bit of wind energy associated with it as well. Don't have the time up, there we go. But you can see here higher wind gusts just coming off the eastern half of the Rockies here. And then our next storm system up north towards the northwest has a little bit of wind energy oncoming with it. And then as we head into Sunday, the winds start to pick up around the southeast, around Alabama and Georgia. Slightly stronger winds are possible in that area where we have severe weather possible. From the low, excuse me, the low to mid levels, there's pretty strong winds aloft with that. So this is a big part of what's aiding the threat. Not necessarily the surface winds, but that's one of the parameters that we have going for that threat. But for the most part, it's not a super windy, not going to be a super windy weekend unless we're over in the southeast or just off the mountain ranges here. When we get into Monday, that's when things start to change a bit. We have a much bigger storm system coming in. And there's a widespread higher wind gust of about 20 to 30 miles an hour, and then some places getting well above that. Now that we've looked at that, let's go ahead and take a look at the precip here. We're going to roll this forward, and for the most part, Saturday is going to be relatively uneventful. And well, actually, let me take that back. Friday night's going to be uneventful. Looking at Saturday morning, that's when the snow will start to kick in, mainly around Kansas. And then this little shortwave clipper system is going to continue to work its way off to the north and east. The Midwest looks like it's going to get light to moderate snow at this point. The big winner on this weekend's storm will definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, be Kansas. And then towards the warm side, we're getting a little bit of rain. Small chance of severe weather on Sunday with this system. And then we'll have to watch the Ohio Valley as this low pressure seems to intensify a bit, down to about sub 1,000 storm, or actually just above 1,000 actually. And we end up seeing a lot of widespread snow, light to moderate. There's a couple pockets where it could be heavier, but we're mainly going to be seeing that in the interior northeast. Towards the coast, we're not going to see a whole lot with that. Oops, hit the mic. And then, of course, as we go in towards Monday, this is going to be our new storm system that we'll have to be watching super close. So let's go ahead and take a look at our rainfall precip, or rainfall totals, I should say, and then we'll look at the wintry side of things. So as far as rainfall is concerned with this weekend, we're mainly going to be looking more so towards the southeast. Panhandle of Florida seems to be the biggest winner here. We could see up to about maybe 4 inches of rain possibly. And this is based off the Euro, of course. We'll go through the other models as well. But for the most part, the general consensus is probably going to be the Panhandle of Florida getting the heaviest rainfall or the greatest rainfall. And then further up north you go, there's a couple of pockets where we could get above 2 inches. But for the most part, we're going to be mainly sitting about 1.5 inches. I think the totals are actually a little bit overdone here. So I think we're actually going to see probably a bit less than this. We send this over the Canadian. Not as much of a bullseye over the Panhandle. It's a little bit different. And there's a small little bullseye over here in central Georgia. Interesting little discrepancies here. GFS has the rainfall a little bit further north, but not by much. A little bit stronger on the totals. It'll be interesting to see how the system performs in that regard. NAM shows a little something different. We're starting to lean more towards the panhandle of the coast. And then we get into the 3-kilometer NAM, which is our convective version of the NAM. We're looking more northerly on the heavy rainfall, the highest rainfall totals. The HRRR isn't actually on here. Oh, because it's 60 hours out, duh. Then the blend of models has the panhandle back in play there for the highest rainfall totals. It's about 3 to 4 inches. A lot of widespread 1.5 inch regions. But for the most part, it's a pretty good general consensus, I would say. Compare our snowfall totals, that's going to be a different story here. So here we are looking at the Euro again. West Kansas is probably going to be the target area right here for the highest snowfall totals. Up to 6 inches is possible, to maybe even up to about 8 inches. A little bit aggressive, but not improbable. That's where the low is going to have the most moisture to work with, just off the Rockies. Further east it goes, the lighter the totals are going to get. And as we move this over to the Canadian, very similar agreement. And there's some pretty good totals over towards the Adirondacks as well. We have gone over this a couple of times, so we got a pretty good idea of what's going to be happening here, or what's to be expected. The GFS looks a little bit more interesting. It has the system getting over to the Ohio Valley, kind of losing steam, and then as it gets to the northeast, it ramps back up, of course. Then as we look at the NAM and NAM 3-kilometer, it's a similar deal actually. And then of course the RDPS, it's a similar look. Although the snow belt does look a little bit more tightly wound together, like the storm stays consistent. So it's pretty interesting to see that. And another thing to talk about here is our ice totals with this system. There was a point where we were concerned about ice with this, but that ice threat has started to dwindle more. We're looking at a lot of areas seeing less than a 1/4 inch. Canadian still has a little something going on, but all the other models are really starting to trend away from it. The NAM is also showing a little something around the Appalachians, but I think we're going to see less than significant totals from the look of things. Everything's kind of trending away from even being 1/10 of an inch ice, let alone a 1/4 inch. So road conditions could still be treacherous, but it's not going to be widespread problems quite like before. I've bumped the mic again, deck on it. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out here. For the most part, I think you guys should be fine around these regions here, especially towards the valleys where we could have a cold air damming it. So last but not least, we'll make our comparison with the blend of models here, which just looked like it updated, by the way. And the ice totals are pretty light with that. We'll compare that to the snowfall, and it's a little bit less aggressive, but not by that much. Snowbelt really starts to lighten up around Missouri, but then picks back up over the Ohio Valley and stays pretty consistent as we get over towards the northeast. Still seeing totals of 6 inches around western Kansas. Towards southwestern Colorado is a really interesting point. I think that's just past the mountain ranges too, so we could still be seeing about almost up to a foot here, which is really interesting. So a lot of interesting stuff ahead on the forecast. Going to be watching for severe weather towards the southeast, especially towards the South Atlantic coast here. We're watching Kansas for some moderate to heavy snow throughout the weekend, especially tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. And then eventually this will work its way into the northeast. But that's pretty much all that we have going on around the country. Nothing too far out of the ordinary expected for everyone else. Some scattered snow showers up towards the northwest. Other than that, that's really it for right now. We'll have a video that talks about Tuesday's slight risk threat, probably towards the latter half of this weekend. And we will have the February outlook coming up soon. So look forward to those things. But that's the end of this video. Believe it or not, I actually have to work tomorrow. So it's going to be, if there's going to be a video tomorrow, it's going to be tomorrow afternoon. I hope you enjoyed this video that I put up tonight. If you did, definitely drop a like. And if you haven't already subscribed, definitely encourage you to do that. Hoping to get to 300 subs by the beginning of March. That'll be the 1-year anniversary of the channel. So if you're enjoying the content, definitely drop a sub and tell your friends about the channel. But anyway, this has been Metalhead Weatherman. I'll see you guys in the next video. You have a good night.